Imagine waking up in a bustling city, only to find that the power is out once again. The lights won't turn on, the air conditioning is down, and the phone screens are blank. This isn't just an isolated incident. It's a daily reality for millions of Pakistanis. For a nation of over 220 million people, this is the status quo. But what happens when the very system designed to keep the lights on becomes a source of constant frustration? Pakistan's electricity grid, the lifeline of its energy infrastructure, is crumbling under the weight of inefficiency, outdated technology, and political failures. As power shortages continue to plague the country, the question remains, how did we get here? Join me as I break down the complexities of Pakistan's electricity grid, from generation to distribution, and explore the deep-rooted issues preventing Pakistan from resolving its ongoing energy crisis. Pakistan's electricity grid is divided into three main parts: generation, transmission, and distribution. Pakistan generates electricity from a mix of energy sources, including hydropower, around 30%, thermal power from oil and gas, around 60%, and a smaller portion from renewable sources like wind and solar. While the country has a vast network of power plants, both public and private, the reliance on fossil fuels, particularly imported oil and LNG, is a significant vulnerability. Pakistan has a growing energy deficit, and its dependency on these imported fuels exposes the country to fluctuating international prices and supply disruptions. A major issue with Pakistan's grid is its outdated transmission infrastructure. Transmission lines carry electricity from power plants to cities and towns, but much of this infrastructure was built decades ago and has not been updated or expanded significantly. This results in transmission losses, which are alarmingly high, with estimates ranging from 15 to 30%. These losses occur due to inefficient transmission lines, old equipment, and inadequate maintenance. In fact, transmission losses in Pakistan's grid are among the highest in the world. When electricity is lost during transmission, it prevents power from reaching consumers, especially in rural areas, leading to frequent power outages, voltage fluctuations, and load shedding. Moreover, Pakistan's distribution system, which brings electricity from substations to households and businesses, is equally problematic. Distribution losses, which stem from theft, poor infrastructure, and faulty metering, exacerbate the situation. It's estimated that up to 30% of electricity in some areas is stolen or unaccounted for. This illegal usage, combined with a high rate of unpaid bills, leaves electric companies with huge financial deficits. The financial health of state-owned companies like WAPDA and PEPCO is dire, with billions in debt that are never recovered. These financial strains make it increasingly difficult to maintain the infrastructure, pay for fuel imports, and invest in new technologies. The result of all this is an electricity crisis that severely impacts Pakistan's economy and daily life. Load shedding, the process of cutting off electricity to certain areas for hours or even days, is a common occurrence in both urban and rural regions. During the scorching summer months, when demand for air conditioning skyrockets, the power grid often collapses under the pressure. The situation is worsened by the inability of the power plants to produce enough electricity due to fuel shortages, maintenance issues, or technical faults. For the average citizen, this means unreliable access to power, loss of productivity, and increased costs for alternative power sources, like generators or UPS systems. But it's not just the infrastructure that's failing. The governance and management of Pakistan's electricity grid are riddled with corruption, inefficiencies, and a lack of political will to address the issue. The government has made several attempts at reforms, including the privatization of electricity distribution companies and introducing new policies to encourage renewable energy sources. However, these reforms are often undermined by a lack of coordination between different government bodies and bureaucratic hurdles. The energy sector is also heavily influenced by politics, with changes in government often leading to abrupt policy shifts, further delaying much-needed long-term solutions. Another key challenge is the integration of renewable energy. Pakistan has abundant potential for solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, yet these sources remain underutilized. While Pakistan has made some progress in incorporating renewables into the grid, such as the development of wind farms in the southern regions and solar projects in the north, these efforts are still a small fraction of the total electricity supply. One of the reasons for this slow adoption is the grid's inability to integrate variable renewable energy efficiently, which requires modern infrastructure and energy storage systems to ensure stability. As the world shifts towards cleaner, more sustainable energy sources, Pakistan's reliance on fossil fuels continues to hinder its progress towards reducing carbon emissions and improving energy security. The lack of a coherent national energy policy also contributes to the electricity crisis. There is no long-term planning to modernize the grid, ensure fuel security, or expand capacity to meet future demand. Short-term fixes, such as building new power plants or increasing energy imports, are often favored over systematic changes. As a result, the country remains trapped in a cycle of energy shortages, economic stagnation, and political gridlock. In conclusion, Pakistan's electricity grid, while critical for the nation's development, is operating under severe stress. Outdated infrastructure, energy theft, poor financial management, and political mismanagement are at the heart of the crisis. The government must prioritize substantial reforms, both in terms of infrastructure and governance, to ensure that the country can meet its energy needs in the coming decades. The development of renewable energy, the overhaul of transmission and distribution systems, and better governance in the power sector could help Pakistan's grid become more efficient and reliable, providing the stable electricity supply the nation desperately needs. Until then, power shortages and load shedding will continue to be a significant challenge for the people of Pakistan.